This is episode 88 of Standing Out. Standing Out is a remarkable interview-style podcast with the intention to highlight women and men making outstanding contributions in their field. This podcast is generously sponsored by Meet Jointly. Across the country, there are small businesses just starting to scale, get distribution, and launch in national retailers. They all share one really big challenge, reaching new customers and growing their brand on a shoestring budget. Meet Jointly is a platform that connects growing brands with the influencers who are ready to share their products and stories with their engaged audience. Today, I'd like to welcome Luz Gonzalez. Luz is a CEO and co-founder of Konviv, the friendly money coach app. Konviv allows people to make better financial decisions with the money that's currently in their bank account. She and her co-founder started the company because of they live their real life experiences, having lived paycheck to paycheck, overdrafted, lived in financial fear and anxiety, and seen the pain that fear and anxiety causes in the lives of their loved ones. They knew financial services could and must do better for the everyday hardworking American. She was born in Mexico and proud of her Latino roots, reads obsessively, is an ultra runner, and is proud of her hustler ways. She also has a BA and JD from UC Berkeley, served for Teach America, and believes that tech is the medium by which we will drive social impact forward. Luz loves hard challenges. Her latest feat is completing her first 50-miler. Is that a 50-miler run?
That was, and that was brutal. That was quite a story all on its own. It was so hard, but it was awesome.
Well, first of all, thank you for being here. I'm really excited to dig in. I have to start with the 50-miler because I'm one of those that looks, I've run a half marathon and I was super excited and proud of that. But I feel like every time I do better in the athletic space, then people are doing like 50-milers and 100-milers and double and triple. I'm like, you guys, what is
true? It's true.
It really is. What was the motivation for that?
Yeah. So every year I've come to accept, you get to a certain age and you just come to accept who you are. And I've come to accept I'm a really intense person. And every year I take like an entire month planning the goals that I have coming up the next year. Yeah. And so for last year, I had like 4 top goals. And they had to be really, really hard. So at the end of the year, I would have grown in such and such ways. And so one of them was running a 50-miler. And I had run, my first race was just your regular half. And I remember part of the reason that I started running these races was I had like a health concern. And so at the beginning, it was actually really scary. And I wanted to prove to myself that I could run while being okay. And so the first race that I did, even though it was just like the 13.2, 13.3, however many miles, I forget at this point. I had to run with chicken in my pocket. And I think that's really funny. But that was just so I wouldn't pass out. And so after that, I said, okay, I did it. What's the next thing, right? Like, I think we should always be asking, what's the next hard thing that I'm going to do to push the limits for myself. And so the next thing was running a marathon. And I thought about that for a really long time. And it just sounded like such a scary thing. And so in 2016, I had said, this is my goal. I'm going to do a marathon. And I was so scared. And I signed up for a race. I signed up for the Sacramento International Marathon. And I ran it and I survived, and I was like, oh my God, I did it. And then after that, I was thinking of what's the next thing. And it just, I'm definitely a runner. At this point, I consider myself a runner. If you haven't read this book, it was really inspiring, and it got me having this crazy idea of running a 50-miler. So I read Born to Run, and I was on a day, just like a random day, I was running and I was listening to this book, and I was only going out to run 6 miles. I was like, it's just going to be a hard run. And as I was running, all of a sudden I'm listening to the book and I'm like, wow, this is so inspiring. And you hear about the Tarahumara. This is a Native American group in Mexico, and they run these 100-mile races. And they do it with such joy, and they just like, they really enjoy themselves while they're running. And I just thought, wow, if they can do it, maybe I should try. And so I said, I'm not going to go straight to the 100, but what about, I just did a marathon. So how about I do the next thing, which is the 50-miler? And so, so I did it. And again, I was petrified, but I think there's something so powerful about doing things. And I think, this also goes just for entrepreneurs. There's something to be said about being petrified about doing something and still doing the preparation, putting in the work, putting in the sweat and the hours, and then doing it. And that feels so good when you're at the other end of that feat.
It does. And that, I do think there is a direct connection of that entrepreneurial journey too, like being afraid and doing it anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And just like, with your running training plan, I mean, I know I have plans for myself and weekly goals, that by Friday I want to be able to say, hey, I did this week. And like, it's kind of like a training plan in and of itself,
Yeah.
So that was super interesting. And thanks for sharing that. I think I'm totally in awe of running 50 miles.
You should sign up. You should try it. It's something, I don't know that everyone should do it.
Yeah, right.
But you should try it out. Like you will surprise yourself. I remember, so we ran for like 19 hours. So it wasn't a slow, like it wasn't like a race that just like took, few hours. It was 18 hours in, it was cold, it was miserable, we were starving. And just remember, like at some point I started crying. And I was like, I don't want to. And you keep going. And so again, like I would invite you and other listeners to try it, because that feeling of getting past even the darkest moments on that journey, there's just something that you're like, boom, I did it. Yes, I feel so proud of myself. Woo!
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's hard to get that feeling otherwise if you haven't tried something that's ridiculously hard.
I love that. So speaking of ridiculously hard, let's talk about starting a tech company.
Yeah.
Is that ridiculously hard? Ridiculously easy?
Oh, it's
somewhere in the middle.
I think it's along the 100-miler route. Yeah. It's ridiculously hard. It's one of the hardest thing I've ever done. And it's also the most rewarding thing I've ever done, especially because of the type of company that we have.
Yeah. So you're a non-technical co-founder, right? Like your background is not in tech. So how, like when this concept was coming up, how was that for you? Did you feel like you had the tools and know how to do what needed to happen? Did you know you were going to hire in support? Like how, were there any roadblocks in that? And well, I'm not a technical person, so I can't do this type thing.
Yeah. So, there's times in your life when you feel so strongly about something that the thinking that you're doing is, I can't not do it. And so I had been thinking about this problem. Like you read in the bio, I grew up in such a way that so my family we were born in Mexico and we moved over when I was 9. And during the time that we moved over through my going to undergrad, we lived in financial anxiety, right? And financial fear. And every financial decision in my household was a really, really important one. And when I got to UC Berkeley, go Bears, by the way, when I got to UC Berkeley as an undergrad, that was the first time that I had to manage my own money. And that's when I discovered how frustrating that process was, given how little innovation there was in terms of how you could control your own money that was sitting in what we call a dumb pot, like your banking environment. So a lot of people, they'll have like one checking account, but while suppose you had all cash, you would be able to like organize your money in different ways within this banking environment, your money is being held hostage. And I just remember being so frustrated that this was the case, and thinking back then, about 14 years ago, thinking, well, who am I to do anything about this? The banks will fix it. Someone will fix it. Like, the problem will be solved. And then fast forwarding about 12 years. And so I started in law. My thing has always been global social impact. This social impact is you could definitely call it an obsession. And I went to law school because I think, given the way that I grew up, when I was looking at options that could create impact, it was like, be a doctor or be a lawyer. And I was like, I don't think I want to be a doctor. Yeah. So it's like, I guess I'll be a lawyer. And when I looked at people who had done meaningful things in the world, a lot of them were lawyers. And I was like, okay, well, let's do that. And then I was in law school, and I loved the experience that I got was amazing, right? And it's been so helpful, especially being in the financial space now. Yeah. It's a very regulated space. So I am so glad that I went. And when I was there, I just realized I was made of like sort of a different fiber than most. Like being a lawyer, you're supposed to be following the law. Right. Of course we should follow that, but like follow the rules, and like it's not really our job to be innovative and think of like creative solutions for things. Right. And so I found myself hanging out more with the business school crowd. And so anyway, back then, so I went to a hackathon. And I wanted my brother, who didn't graduate from high school, to experience tech, not just as a consumer, but as a creator of tech, because the way that we grew up, even though we were in Silicon Valley, I had never seen Silicon Valley. And so when my brother said that he wanted to go to the hackathon, I was like, oh my God, I have to be there, because I want to see him just feel like he's part of something that so many people of color, in my experience, had not felt like they were creators of tech, of this world of tech. And so, so I went, and my brother said yes, and I was shocked he said yes. So then we went, and this hackathon wound up changing my life. I had no idea the sort of effect it was going to have on me. I told the organizers, like, my brother's going to be here, I would really like to be a volunteer. And so they put me as a facilitator of a group. And I got to facilitate a group of underrepresented youth who were using technology to solve problems in their own communities. And it was one of these out of self moments where I was just like, oh my God, this is it. Like, it was like angels sang, and like a rainbow appeared over the sky. I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And at this point, my background was law, right? And so I made that decision that I was going to switch over into tech, because tech is the way that we drive meaningful movements forward. It absolutely is. Anything that is going to scale in this day and age absolutely requires tech. And so it was very clear to me that I needed to become part of this world of tech for so many reasons. And so I started trying to get into the world of tech, and I got to work at this company. And when I was working at this company, I kept thinking back about this problem right from 14, I guess at that point, like 12 years ago. And I hacked the solution for myself. And it helped me so much to have this system that operated and allowed me to, again, think of my money and manage my money and make decisions about my money that were based on so much, like, much richer and much more helpful information. Yeah. And the way, like when I went to sleep at night, I could breathe. And it's that sort of feeling that we're trying to provide. And so I could not stop myself from working on this, because it was something that I had been thinking about for over a decade. And it was something that I knew, unless you had lived in a situation where you saw your family live through financial anxiety and continue to live in financial fear and anxiety, and you had been there yourself, I didn't know that the solutions that I was going to create through technology would be created by anybody else. And so I could not do it.
And it may not have been created by anyone else. So thank you for leading that charge. I mean, because you're right. Like, if we're sitting here saying, oh, the banks are going to handle it, well, they still haven't. So
They haven't. I know. I waited long enough. It actually, funny enough, now on this side, the work that I'm doing, I've had conversations with banks, some of the largest banks in the world, really. And I've told them the story, and I've told them, guys, you made me do it. Like, I was happy for you to like fix it, and you did it. So now here we are, and like now I'm building it.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us about the platform and what it does, because it's really cool and interesting.
Yeah. So back to the problem that I had, and many, like basically, like almost 100% of people have. So 78% of full-time working Americans say that they're living paycheck to paycheck. That number is pretty shocking, heartbreaking, and tells us that the majority of people that we see walking down the street are struggling with their finances. And so my family's story of financial anxiety and fear, what I came to realize wasn't just my own story. It was the story of basically every American, the majority of Americans, who are living in financial fear. And for this majority of Americans, what often will happen, I'll talk about Nancy. Nancy is a real person that I met about a year ago. I met her at a Mexican restaurant. Like, I talk to everyone that I can about Konviv. And I told her how I hacked the system, and she said, oh my God, like, I would need something like this. Just the other day, I was at Target, and my daughter asked me to buy her a dress that she really liked. And, as a mom, I want to be able to spoil my daughter once in a while. And I think every mom, regardless of their socioeconomic background, should have the knowledge that they need to know when they can spoil their kids, right? Mm-hmm. And so she at that point, she had a couple of options. Option number one was she could look up her bank balance, and she might have seen you have $1,200 in the bank, but that is a really dumb number. That doesn't tell her of the $1,200, like 90% of that, it's already obligated to your bills and your rent and, your food and transportation needs. So it doesn't give her any information about whether she can or cannot buy that dress for her daughter. Now, she could go to any of the like budgeting apps that are out there, but they don't answer the question of the money that's currently sitting in your bank account, how much of that money is saved per type of category or per type of purchase. Mm-hmm. And so that is the pain point we're really looking to solve. It at the moment of you're like, can I buy that pizza? Or can I, you walk by, you see some cute shoes, and you're like, oh, but like, can I? There's nothing that answers that can I question, and that we're solving that. And so we connect that to a front end interface that it's just like the way that you look at the app, that is based on like neuroscience and behavioral economics, that lets you know through pictures and colors if you are good to go or if you need to think about it some more. And then it's also connected to a chat interface. So you can basically, it's like talking to your wallet, texting, I guess, your wallet, and having it talk back, and having it feel like a friendly money coach. Like, have you heard of like Susie Orman or Dave Ramsey?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So just imagine carrying one of those, on your shoulder everywhere you go, and it's just powered through artificial intelligence and, big data. And whenever you have questions about your financial life, you just ask us, and we tell you based on your own data.
Which is so cool. And I think just on the very basic standpoint of what you were saying of having the one account with the money, and it's just not smart, because a lot of that money is accounted for, the money is there. You need to pay XYZ bill tomorrow or in a few days, and that's going to take that money out. I love that. Can people sign up, or where are you in development?
Yeah, so we're still early on, which means we have a beta product. And by having a beta, what that means is we're testing. So we needed to build the algorithms. And so we are on the App Store, but we're sort of under a hidden name. So we can just do some testing. But what people can do is they can go to konviv.com and sign up for the wait list. So once we've tested it with a few hundred people, they can like start using it. And it should be really, really soon. This like should be right around the corner that people will start to be able to test Konviv. And you know what? I'm so excited because I just think of, you know, my sister, she's going to be a new mom. I'm so excited to be an aunt. And I think of the sort of decisions that they're going to have to make, and the, you know, being Nancy, like my sister wanting to spoil her daughter and not having the tools to do that. And with our product, we're going to be able to change that for the everyday American. And I can't wait to use it myself. Like, I've waited long enough.
Right. You're like, hurry up, I need this. That's awesome.
Yeah.
As we wrap up, my last question for you, as a thought leader in your space, what's on your radar that you feel like we're all going to be talking about in another year or two from now as sort of a hot topic?
Yeah, I think it's the future of work. And I think, you know, living and breathing the world of tech and automation. Yeah. I think about the people that are going to be out of a job because of the advances that we have in tech. And so we're having many conversations around what that means, who should be responsible for what, and how do we re-educate the workforce to have the skill sets that they need to thrive in tomorrow. And it's not even tomorrow's world, it's today's world. And there's, you know, the concept of building a new social contract. And back, you know, about 100 years ago, back when, you know, Henry Ford and these like large companies, they had a similar problem or concern, and they came together as companies and they said, you know what, we are going to set a higher bar, a higher standard for our workers, and then everybody else followed. And I think my personal opinion is that it's the role of technology and it's the role of companies, because sometimes, I mean, often government takes so long, right? And I started my career in government, and then I tried nonprofits, and then I tried the law thing, and I was like, oh, I just move at a faster pace than people. So I think it's going to be on us, the business people, to think of this new social contract that allows for everyone to live lives of dignity and just like safety, and we provide a safety net, and I do believe in that. And so I think we'll be talking about that and hopefully making it so it exists soon.
That's awesome. I love that. That's a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. And I can't wait for you to use our app. It's going to be great.
I know. I'll get on the wait list today. Perfect.